Well, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Make yourself at home. Have a drink. While I give some attention to some underappreciated characters and storylines that I personally love. And I hope you grow to love as well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Matt's Minis, the podcast mini-series where every week I go through one issue of an entire run I'm going to pick, and we're going to go through the whole run. This first run, we're going to go through the 70s Swamp Thing run, which is 24 issues for the main run, and then this first issue, which is like the origin of, or the first appearance of Swamp Thing, which is from House of Secrets number 92. So, basically we're just going to be going through a bunch of stuff I want to read and stuff you want me to read or hear from. So we'll figure it out as we go. But right now, let's get into this issue. So first off, we got the cover. Fantastic cover. It's Bernie Wrightson artwork. Him and Len Wein are the creators of Swamp Thing. So Wrightson did the cover for this issue of House of Secrets. It's from July 1971. And so the cover is a blonde-haired lady. It's nighttime. She's combing her hair or brushing her hair in front of her, I guess, makeup desk or makeup table. And she looks like she hears something behind her. And there's definitely something behind her. It's a giant humanoid green monster. And he's coming through her window. You can see the moon above him. There's nice shadows and everything on it. So, I don't know. The artwork's amazing. Bernie Wrightson is so good on this book. And everything he does. He's an amazing artist. I know he passed away a couple of years ago, so R.I.P. Bernie Wrightson, you were one of the greats. But so that's the cover, and we get into the first page here. You see right away Swamp Thing. It shows him kind of like slumping over. You don't know what this monster is. It's this kind of green humanoid looking thing. He's got his knuckles dragging on the ground a little bit. He looks kind of unbalanced. It says, he can't remember anything anymore. He couldn't remember anything before this morning. And basically it's him, and he's walking through this swamp, and he's walking on the last panel we see towards like an old kind of Victorian style house. And then it cuts to the inside of the house, and we see two characters. One's named Damien, and one is named Linda. Find out her name is Linda Olson Ridge, and it is their 6-month anniversary. So these two people like to celebrate half anniversaries. Apparently it's their first one, so I don't know, some people get a little excited about their new found marriage and love. So this couple's toasting to their 6-month anniversary since they were wed. So but the husband noticed, the wife seems a little not super excited, like a little sad. He says, "You're thinking about Alex again, aren't you, darling? I can see it in your eyes." And she says, "I'm sorry, Damien. It's just that he's still so real to me." And that's when we find out. And this is amazing what he just says. I mean, this is her husband of 6 months. You're assuming they're in love. And he just says, "Linda, Alex Olson is dead. And you are my wife now. Eventually, you'll have to realize that fact. Alex is gone, and there's nothing to do but forget him." So, I'm assuming 7 months ago, she was married to some guy named Alex, and he died, and then this dude came in and just married her right away. So we can kind of see that Damien's not the best person ever, but then we can see that then the next page that Linda kind of goes into her thoughts. She starts thinking about Alex and how they were together, and it shows a picture of their marriage and how Alex and her were so happy. And you see Alex was a scientist, and he was working with Damien, who was his partner. And, everything seemed fine. And then boom. You see like a door that's blowing apart, and you see Linda saying, "Oh dear God, no, Alex's lab." And Damien's like, "No, don't go in there. There's nothing left to see, Linda. Alex is dead." And she's like, "No, Damien, no, no, no." And that's where her thoughts ended, because she's brought back to the present of their anniversary dinner by Damien saying, "Linda, you haven't heard a word I've said." Apparently he was talking to her. She didn't hear anything. And then, but while they're talking, the swamp monster is now out of the woods, out of the swamp, and he is coming ever closer to that house. So, so he's just creeping in. He looks so sad in this first appearance of him. He just doesn't know what's going on, but he knows about that house for some reason. So, and so Linda and Damien are still talking, and basically after she goes into her little memory flashback, he has a memory flashback, and this is where you see where his true nature, because it says, "I never really forgave Alex for marrying you," that meaning Linda, "when he knew how much I loved you. You'll never know how hard it was for me to keep up the facade of the eternal friend." And on their I guess, and the anniversary of Alex and Linda, this must have been a couple of years ago, Damien's saying, "Happy anniversary to my two dearest friends." So he's pretending, that he's happy for them, but he is not. And then you find out, he just couldn't handle it anymore. Couldn't handle seeing them in love and together. So he arranged for the explosion. He mixed chemicals in the lab, altering the formula, and that was the best way, he says, to get rid of his best friend. So, and that's not it though, because explosion, you killed your best friend. The more fucked up thing is apparently when that explosion happened, the reason why he was keeping Linda away from the door is because Alex wasn't even killed in that explosion. And what ended up happening was Damien just carried his bodied, it says right here, "I carried his battered and bloody form out into the fetid interior of the swamp beyond, and I buried it there." So this is I'm assuming, I don't know, like I said, 7 months ago or something. I don't know how long it took for them to get married, but yeah, it's just not, he's just not a very good friend. Let's put it that way. that way. So then it cuts back to, nowadays again, the 6-month anniversary dinner, and Linda's saying, "Forgive me, the chill has gotten worse and I should retire to my room." And so he's like, "Oh, of course, go ahead. I'll join you shortly." But then as she's walking away, he looks and he says, "It's only a matter of time before she realizes that I killed Alex. And that will mean my end. However much I care for Linda, my own neck comes first. Linda must die." Bah, bah, bah. So for, I guess, she's just being a little sad about Alex's death still, has really put him on edge. And he just feels like she knows something's up, even though she didn't really show that. But we're going to say that she's a lot smarter than she lets on. So we cut to her room, and she's brushing her hair, but she feels like someone's watching her. And you just see the next panel is a big eye. It's a big green. It's like his eyes are yellow, but his, around his eyes are green. And it looks, if you look at it at the wrong angle, it looks like he's mad or angry. But I think it's actually because of the cant of his eyebrow always looking down because he's so sad, or it's always going down to the side. It's actually him sadly looking at her. And then Damien walks in and is like, "Linda, are you feeling better?" And she is like, "Oh, yeah, it's fine. It's nothing. Don't worry yourself." And he's like, "Nothing, no, or nonsense. I'll give you a massage. That'll help you out." And he's got a needle in his hand. He's going to stab her with a hypodermic needle, I'm assuming full of poison. And Swamp Thing sees that, and he is not okay with that. And he bursts through that window. And you just, Damien's just like, "Oh, God, no." And this is the first time you see Swamp Thing kind of look angry or different than sad. And he grabs Damien's hands. Swamp Thing, then throws him on the ground and begins to choke him. And it gets super dark. This is like, a child's comic. So it was 71. So, and this was approved by the Comics Code. So I'm a little surprised how violent this gets, but at least in the writing, the actual violence on the page, as far as the images aren't that violent, but the words are, because it says, for several short minutes, Damien Ridge struggles for his unworthy life, tearing, clawing, ripping decaying shreds from what once had been my flesh, until at last he lies still forever. And then, so Damien's now dead, and in that struggle, kind of the world comes back to the Swamp Thing, and he just starts hearing a scream behind him, and he sees Linda's, basically yelling at him, saying, "No, stay away." And the way that Bernie draws him here, he's like pleading with his hands out, and it says, "I stretch out my arms to her, to calm her, to comfort her. I open my mouth to tell her how much I care, but what once had been my vocal cords have been silent too long. I cannot make a sound." And basically, she was screaming, and she sees him pleading, and she can see his eyes, and she stops screaming and kind of just looks at him more like, "What the hell are you?" kind of thing. And he turns, and he sees there's no way she could love me anymore. And he says, "Only the swamp is kind to me now. It is only the swamp that cares." And this is where we find out, and I guess I missed this, or I forgot to mention this, but Alex was given a golden bracelet on one of their anniversaries, I believe, earlier in the comic. And it says, "I looked down at my wrist at the barren place where once there was a golden bracelet, and I wonder where it is." And that's when we find out, as the reader, that the Swamp Thing is in fact Alex Olsen, which I'm sure we all figured out, but I'm sure some kids were stunned by that revelation in 1971. So, but yeah, so, Swamp Thing looks, and he's just, his face is so sad in this issue while this is going on, but he walks away, and as he's walking away, he says, "If tears could come, they would." And he just walks back to the swamp and into the mist, into the silhouette of a moon. And yeah, that's the end of the first appearance of Swamp Thing. Fantastic art, fantastic book. I mean, it's a little short because it's part of like the House of Secrets was like what's it called? Like a vignette book where there's a bunch of different stories all together in one book. So you get like 8 pages of Swamp Thing, 8 pages of another one, 8 pages of another one, and that equals 24 pages. So next week we'll be doing Swamp Thing #1 from the original first run of Swamp Thing. Same creative team and everything. So yeah, that should be pretty fun. And if you guys have any suggestions or comments or questions, feel free to email me at planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, at gmail.com. And can't wait to have some fun with you guys reading some comics. See ya.